What separates Phil Ivey from everyone else? Well, clearly he's a cyborg. According to Phil, his secret is he doesn't get frustrated.
I try not to let things bother me when I play poker.
However, even this poker legend has lost his cool. Now, we had to dig deep, real deep to find these. But here are 4 moments Phil Ivey lost his cool. When you earn the reputation as an emotionless robot, this is what it looks like to blow a fuse.
Running bad.
The action begins with a 3,500 raise from John Robert Belland. This is the super high roller cash game. The pots are about to become giant. To his left, Phil Ivey looks down at pocket 2s. Easy call, he's looking to set mine. Antonio Esfandiari sees his friend having fun. With 5-4 offsuit, being in position is about all he has here. But when Phil Ivey calls, he decides there's enough equity to come along for the ride. Flop comes, ace 3-2 with 2 hearts. A dream flop for Esfandiari. But his work isn't done. Both JRB and Ivey have a lot of equity on the board. JRB, the pre-flop raiser, leads with 8,000, just over a quarter of the pot. He's got a flush draw. Hoping this bet gets through and can see a turn card on the cheap. Phil Ivey hits bottom set on this board with his pocket 2s. He decides to just flat call. But Esfandiari isn't having it. Staring at a connected board, he's not letting a heart come down there for free. You gotta pay to play. He raises it up 3.5 times the bet to $28,000, doubling the pot. JRB thinks for a second, but stacks are deep. He's willing to chase a heart. Ivey with a quick call. Any ace, 2 or 3 gives him the nuts. With a stack nearing $1 million, the implied odds are juicy. Turn comes a jack of spades. Painful for JRB, but both Phil and Antonio are happy to see a break. The action checks down to Antonio Esfandiari. He's ahead and it's time to get more value. Being 68,000, about 40% of the pot, he puts the pressure back on his opponents. JRB thinks for a moment. Counting his chips? Looking awfully close like a call. Was he angling a bit here? Hard to say, but glad I don't have to make the ruling. Phil Ivey's in an interesting spot. He must be thinking he's ahead here. 5-4 is such a small part of Esfandiari's range. Even without bluffs and semi-bluffs, he could be betting with made hands that are a lot worse than Phil's bottom set. A king of clubs on the river. Absolute relief for Antonio Esfandiari. Phil Ivey only has one winning combo. Queen 10 of hearts. That could make it to the river on this board. Antonio beats everything else in Phil's range, so now it's time to take him to Value Town. This is why it pays to play the button. Without improving on any street, there's not much Ivey can do here. You definitely don't want to bet and face a raise. Ivey checks, and now he's at Antonio's mercy. Not much left here for Phil Ivey. A raise would fold out all the hands he beats anyways, keeping only the hands that have him crushed. He has to call. He's hoping to beat hands like ace 2, ace 3, maybe ace jack. Antonio would certainly 3-bet ace king pre-flop. Ivey calls. The pot now is $540,000. Esfandiari is quick to flip it over. And Phil, well, he wants nothing to do with his cards anymore.
That's fair.
But did you hear that? That's fair? Imagine losing $260,000 and you mumble that's fair. Imagine always being so calm and collected that people notice when you throw 2 cards into the muck. Phil Ivey has long ago accepted that poker is an ice-cold mistress. But even Phil needs a punching bag sometimes. Sorry, dealer, he's blaming you for the run bad. The game of poker can't get to Phil, but you know what can? People. People can bother him. It's one thing to slow roll Phil Ivey, but don't you dare misspeak. We pick things up on the river here. Phil Ivey sits out of position with another legend, Tom Dwan, on his left. The board is 6, jack, 9, ace, 2 with 4 clubs. Ivey has the 10 of clubs in his hand, giving him the third nuts. He checks the river. Action is on Tom Dwan. Dwan with the king of clubs, the nut flush, decides to take his time, figuring out a bet size. Firing a large bet of $61,300, 80% of the pot. As if this spot isn't torturous enough, Phil has Daniel Negreanu yapping about his round of golf. Ivey thinks for a beat, then decides to make the call. The pot at $200,000 effectively, Tom Dwan tells Phil, you got it.
And with that, how can you both?
Flipping it over, Phil sees Tom Dwan's king, and he doesn't like it. Nuh-uh, not one bit. Did Tom Dwan think his king was a spade? Or was he trying to get Phil off his game? Either way, lesson learned. Watch what you say to Phil Ivey. In this next clip, we go back to the 2008 World Series of Poker. Columba Duffy, an amateur player just looking to have a good time with the legend to his left, gets himself into a sticky situation. Duffy with jack 8 offsuit leads with trips on the flop. Phil Ivey holding ace 5 of spades makes the quick call with a nut flush draw. The turn comes with an 8 of spades, the single best card that could come down for Duffy. Completing the nut flush for Phil, he's not going anywhere now but filling up the boat for Duffy. Kudos to the man maintaining his poker face. Duffy plays with his chips a bit but slows down and bets small. A 1/4 pot bet, respecting the flush that just hit the board. Ivey looks at the small bet size as a sign of weakness and ups the pot, raising to 9,000 chips, effectively doubling the pot. Duffy thinks but makes the quick call, retreating back to his seat. If only he stayed there. Phil leans in, checking Duffy's stack of chips. The raise was certainly intended to make sure Columba Duffy was pot shot committed on the last street. But Duffy might have picked up on this. A king of hearts on the river does nothing for either of them. Phil's been representing the flush. Duffy shouldn't be too worried about one combo king of spades with the last jack here. Duffy continues to disguise his hand with a check. Phil wastes no time and puts Duffy all in. Now, we don't see that Duffy did actually tank for about 10 seconds before making the call. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, stay seated.
Why are you standing up for?
Why shouldn't it be? I mean, there's something wrong with standing up.
Why are you standing up when you got the nuts, like you're getting ready to leave?
Duffy scrambling to find some words, he backpedals. Hard to blame the guy. Which one of us wouldn't crumble to Phil's death glare? In his last clip, we're watching the inaugural season of Poker After Dark. There sure are a lot of familiar faces, and one that keeps getting into it with everyone. The table full of talkers. Mike the Mouth Mattisau, the trash-talking Tony G. But it was Phil Hellmuth that decided to invade Phil Ivey's personal space. The action begins with 3 aforementioned players trading bad beat stories. Hellmuth looks down at Queen 9 offsuit, leading out for $800. On his left, Phil Ivey glances at Ace 9 off and decides to put an end to the rambling, or so he thought. Raising up to $2,200 to play, everyone else gets out of the way. And this is where the games begin. There are no crafty plays, no disguising of hands, no range versus range analysis. Just old Phil Hellmuth trying to gain an edge. Hellmuth continues blabbering, knowing his hand isn't that strong but acting like he's ready to get splashy with his chips. When Ivey stonewalls him, Phil Hellmuth decides to get a little more annoying. Like a younger brother needing attention, he starts to prod Ivey. Ivey's quick to stand his ground, but remembers his manners and asks politely.
Come on, man, stop, please.
What a gentleman. Hellmuth acts like he did nothing wrong.
What are you mad at me for?
Maybe the man just likes linen. He tries to keep joking, but Phil Ivey is having none of it.
Here, you can touch this. Is
I
it
don't want
okay?
The rest of the animals in this circus have a laugh at Hellmuth getting shut down. Mike Mattisau gives Hellmuth a little reassurance before Hellmuth tries extending an olive branch. Some words of wisdom from the philosopher Phil Hellmuth.
It's not always you against the world, kid.
Oh, thanks for the speech.
Ivey tells him to stuff it as politely as he can. The hyenas have one more laugh, but they see Phil Ivey isn't here to joke around tonight. Okay, so maybe Phil Ivey isn't a cyborg. Maybe he really is human after all. But if it's one thing these clips show us, Phil has come to terms with poker. The two of them have a mutual respect, and he'll never get angered by the game. But he doesn't have patience for people that don't share the same philosophy.
Come on, man, stop, please.
Respect the game, respect the action, and for the love of God, please respect Phil Ivey's personal space. When did poker make you snap? Or did you keep your cool like our poker patron Saint Phil Ivey? Let us know in the comments. And please be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know what you want to see next.